Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Caitlin at grassfedgirl.com. Today, we're here with Gina Coker. She's at Girl Eat Keto, so at Girl Eat Keto on Instagram. And she's has an amazing story of losing 90 pounds on keto. And she's actually my friend. She lives here in Nashville. So I just want to have her on because I think her approach to keto will be helpful, because I feel like a lot of the people who do keto, they make a lot of mistakes. And I feel like her approach will help you if you are kind of teetering between carnivore and keto, but you want to do keto the right way. So I want to hear Gina's story, and she's going to help us and tell all about the things she did right and getting her health back. So welcome, Gina.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to chat with you today. It'll be fun. Do you want me to just jump right in with my health
Well,
story?
yeah, we want to hear your story of,
Okay.
what your health was like before you started keto and what got you interested in changing your life and everything like that.
Yeah. So for my whole life, from as young as elementary school, I have struggled with my weight. I've always known that I was overweight. With from the kids at school, just felt really kind of insecure in my body from a very, very young age. And so I always was on a diet for as long as I can remember. My parents always cooked really healthy, but I just was always hungry all the time. I was never satisfied, and definitely had, issues with emotional eating and using food as comfort. And so that, I was always yo-yo dieting all the time and never satisfied. And that continued on into college. And when I was a senior in college in 2012, I started having severe digestive issues. Like, could not leave my house because I always needed to be by a toilet. I was in like worse than labor pain all the time. And I went to all these specialists. I was going to University of Texas at Austin. So I was seeing like different doctors in Austin, doctors in Houston. I had all these tests run. No one could figure out what was going on with my body, but the severe stomach pain was so bad. And I eventually went to a holistic doctor in Austin, and she said, like, hey, this could be what you're eating. Like, and I was like, what? Like, she said, you need to get off the gluten and just try that for 3 weeks. And I remember arguing with her, being like, no, those are the foods that I love, like pretzels, bread, cereal. Like, I could easily eat a whole box of cereal in the morning. Like, and I just remember thinking, there's no way I can give that up. But I was so uncomfortable. And so I decided to do it. My hair was falling out. Like, I remember coming home from college and I didn't think anything of it. And then my mom did my laundry, and just like there was like mounds of hair. And she was like, what on that were on my clothes? I had lost like a significant amount of hair. My body was just, it was so bloated all the time. I almost kind of looked like pregnant, like because my stomach was so just descended. And so ultimately, as soon as I cut gluten out, my doctor said that it was just severe gluten intolerance or celiac. And so they basically, so ever since then, I haven't been any more gluten except accidents at restaurants, which I can very easily tell if someone has been cross-contaminated or whatever. So I've been gluten-free since then. So that was like the major start of my journey. But my problem with that is that I kind of felt bad for myself that I couldn't eat things like bread, so just traditional bread. So I would eat all the basically gluten-free junk food. Like, Walmart came out with like gluten-free Oreos, and like I would eat those by the box, like things like that. So I just replaced like the traditional gluten-filled foods with just junk that was all gluten-free, all the time. And I still had the same issues of using food and never being satisfied and always just wanting more and using it as like a coping mechanism. So, fast forward, like I get married or I get engaged, and I'm like, oh, finally, like I'm gonna finally lose weight. Like I go on this huge plan to work out, to try to lose weight. I tried everything, all the Whole30s, everything. I could never lose weight. I would be really good for like 4 or 5 days, and then I would go off the handle on the weekends and just yo. So
You were engaged then.
yes.
And so
Well,
you were wanting to lose weight for the wedding.
exactly. It was like as soon as I got engaged, I was like, okay, I have, a year to lose weight for a wedding dress. So I was like focused on the wedding dress. I was living at home at that point. So my dad's a really great cook. They were like, we'll help you. They were all in to like cook healthy. We did like Whole30s. I eliminated dairy. Like I did everything. I bought all the pills. Like at Costco, they had these like pills that you could buy to like lose weight, green tea. I don't even know. I tried everything, and I did lose some weight and felt really good, but never really got to like where I felt like good in my body or felt confident. I always was feeling less than, I guess, because of, my eating choices.
So what
And
do you think the problem was with the Whole30?
well, I would do the Whole30, but I would eat like sweet potato for breakfast, and then I would have like a sweet potato for lunch, and then I would just replace a lot of I would overeat as well. Like I would just eat all day long, and I did like probably 3 rounds completely where I did no like substituting, so I didn't make any sweets or anything like that, and that really helped me. Like my Whole30 is definitely what started me realizing that I had issues with food. And so I did actually a Whole30 right before I got pregnant because I wanted to just get all the processed food out of my body, and then I got pregnant right away after I did my first Whole30. So, or my last round of Whole30
Don't jump too far ahead. So
I
let's go back to the engagement.
Okay.
And
So
your weight loss for the wedding.
yeah, and it was hard. It was because, as most people know, when you're engaged, there's a lot of stress that comes with planning a wedding. And so while I was being really good and eating a lot of plain chicken breasts and lots of vegetables, like I would eat salad only with vinaigrette on it. Like I was under eating. I was not eating enough calories. I was miserable. I was hangry, which did not make for a great bride, when you're trying to plan a wedding. So I was, essentially starving my body of nutrients at that point and not eating, being and weighing everything, like being very concerned about my portions of meat because steak was so caloric. I couldn't eat steak, things like that. And so that was really a difficult time to go through that. And then after I got married, I just was like, really happy. And I kind of had the feeling like, well, I have a husband now, so I don't really care what I look like, and I kind of because I'd always been on a diet. It was like, well, I'm married, so I'm just going to eat everything that I want. And, my husband and I would eat each of us would eat like a whole frozen pizza, and a ton of cookies and like a whole bottle of champagne each. Like that would be like a Friday night, and it was just typical to do that. So
you were still doing gluten-free.
yeah, always gluten-free, but you can find, gluten-free everything now, and it's just super processed. They, just replace it with different things. So that was kind of, and I guess through my pregnancy, I remember talking to my doctor, because we got pregnant pretty quick after getting married. And I remember telling my doctor that I was going to do I wanted to do Whole30, kind of that whole eating style, no sugar, stuff like that throughout my whole pregnancy. And she was like, great, that's amazing, just make sure you're getting protein. So we had talked this whole plan through, and then as soon as I got pregnant, it was like a green light to eat whatever I wanted again. So I was not healthy, and I tried, but it was really not a good. Amelia, my daughter, ended up being very healthy when she came out. Luckily, I was very thankful. I had no issues with my pregnancy. So everything was, fine that way, but I wasn't really treating my body well with food and, during that time. So then I had Amelia, a couple months went by. We really struggled, or I guess I should say I struggled after she was born. And I chose food as a way to cope with that. And so, struggled breastfeeding. I just was struggling. I had quit my job as a teacher. I loved teaching. And now I'm at home by myself. It's in the winter months. It was a huge transition. And, so of course I remember not wanting to leave my house and sending my husband or parents to go get me bags of Reese's peanut butter cups. And I would just eat those as a way to I need energy, I need fuel, because I was breastfeeding. And so I was just poor Amelia is I'm surprised she's not like hooked on sugar, but yeah, so that was a difficult time. And then I basically, how everything started with me deciding I needed to change was, there was a couple of things, but all in the same kind of time frame. I remember she was on the floor playing and wanting to play with me, wanting, and I was so uncomfortable. I was so tired. I was so miserable. Like it just hurt to even sit on the ground because my stomach was like on each other. It's like the rolls were on each other. And I just remember thinking like, I need to be better for her. Like I might not be able to be better for myself. My whole life, I haven't been able to stick to anything, but I need to be healthy for her. And so at that same time, I knew that my life, I was lacking something. Like I was lacking connection. So I joined a group at my church, which is just for moms and new moms. And I was like, maybe someone here can help me. Like I can make a friend, and maybe, because I didn't know anybody. I'd recently moved to the area. And so it just happened that day after mom's group, they were like, hey, we're all going out to lunch. Do you want to come? And I was like, so nervous because I didn't know anyone, but I was like, well, sure, I'll go. So I went, and it just also was a coincidence that the woman sitting next to me was telling everybody at the table about her keto journey and how proud she was. She had lost so much weight, and she literally brought handouts that she had printed off the computer for enough for like 20 people that were at the table. So she's passing them out of like lists of low carb vegetables, and she's like, I've lost all this weight, my life is so great, I have so much energy. And I was sitting there like, this is too good to be true. But like, this lady is telling me all about this, and she's so excited. So, and of course, since I've tried every diet, I was like, great, a new diet, I'm a professional dieter, I will sign up for this, tell me what I can't eat, whatever. So I took that paper home, and it was like April 28th or something. And so I was like, hey, May 1st is just around the corner. So I just spent time those next couple of days, like researching. And then I'd come across a book called Why We Get Fat when I was just doing low carb research online. This is what it looks like. And this book, like, I literally changed my life, because in here it talks about,
read.
Have you read it?
Well, I mean, I've seen him speak several times.
Oh, okay.
It's just, it's very in depth.
Yeah. And I'm a huge researcher. As a former teacher, also my husband's a scientist, and so he also read it. He got into like the whole evolutionary thing, and and it made me like, literally, I was bawling reading this book, because my whole life I felt like there was something wrong with me, because I was overweight, and I was thinking, why can't I just stop eating? Why can't I just stop? Like, I know I shouldn't be, having all these sugar. I know that, like, but I thought I was doing everything right. I was always eating a ton of fruit. I was always eating a ton of vegetables, but I was still gaining weight. And I was just like, what is going on? And so in this book, he talks a lot about how, it's our ancestors would have like an apple, but they would have it like once a year, not every single day. And so, I had never heard of anything about insulin. I had never heard about, I didn't even know what glucose was. Like, so this book was like a really good example to like shake my eyes. Like, maybe it wasn't me. Like, maybe it was what I'm eating. And
Yeah,
so
it's
that,
the way we're made inside.
yeah. So that book, and then meeting this woman at church who like gave me literally handed out things about low carb foods, like eat all the meats, eat cheese, that kind of stuff. And then I also read another book at that same time, which it's a Christian book, but it's called Made to Crave, and it's all about food and hangups with food. And so like, it was kind of like a trifecta of the Why We Get Fat, this woman, and she was so excited. I was like, well, I can't not try it. And then the book Made to Crave, which is just, thinking about if you've had food hangups your whole life, like how to kind of get over that. Because a lot of food hangups for me and all this was so mental. It was so like, I feel like I'm always the overweight person, so I'm just gonna kind of always be overweight, and I stopped weighing myself after a couple months after having Amelia, because the scale was just, going up. And so 227 was the highest number I saw on the scale, but I know that I was higher than that before I started keto. But that's just kind of like what I used as my starting weight, because that's the only thing the number I'd physically seen. So yeah, then May 1st.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
Okay.
And a half. I gotta take the half. take everything I can. But I always had this like mental number, like 165 was always what I wanted to get to for my wedding, for whatever. Like I just felt like that was a healthy range. I was always trying to get to 165 and I was never able to get there. And so until I did keto, spoiler alert. But so yeah, May 1st is when I started keto. And so the interesting thing, I think that what I kind of why my keto is different than some other people is that one, I'm extremely frugal. And so I did not buy anything. I didn't buy any special products or bars or anything. I didn't feel pressure to buy any ice cream or any, like I literally just did it with whole foods that I could afford in my house, like budget wise. And then I think because I had done the gluten-free thing before, and I'd still obviously am gluten-free, that it didn't seem so restrictive to me. And so when my friend handed me that list of paper, I looked at it as not as, oh my gosh, I can't eat this. It was more of like, look at all these, cheeses and meat and all these things that I can eat that I love. Like I can finally eat steak again. Like sign me, like if I can have steak, like great. And so I think a lot of people go into it mentally thinking like, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat this. And it's like, just think of it more in like a positive way of like, I'm choosing to fuel my body with these things that, our ancestors have been fueling their bodies with that seem to really make me feel good. And so that's another thing, that really helped, I think, me go into it, not thinking it was a diet, is more thinking it of it like a lifestyle. Because this woman had already lost all her weight and she was still eating this way. And so I was like, well, it's other people have done it this way and like still continue to choose this, not as a diet. So
what was your typical day of eating?
yeah, that's a really good question. I so my husband was one of those people who can like get lost in his work and like just skip a meal. He's a very healthy relationship with food, has always been that way. And so I didn't trust the fact that some people can like not be hungry at all times. So as soon as I woke up in May, all the way until about September, I ate breakfast right away. And I would always have some variation of bacon and eggs or like some meat, a breakfast meat, like ham or sausage or bacon, and then eggs. I am like a very egg heavy person. That's probably another thing that's different for me. I eat eggs every day. So that was my breakfast every day. And then my lunch, keep in mind, I had a newborn at this point. I was just struggling to like readjust to being a stay-at-home mom. So my lunch was always leftover dinners from a couple of days ago or the night before. So it was protein heavy. So I would eat a ton of protein and then maybe like a side salad or maybe vegetables, but I really prefer like eggs and protein more than like vegetables in general. So that would be my lunch. And then for dinner, I would just choose another protein like beef or anything, ground beef, and then have that for my dinner. And I would maybe top it with like cheese and then have a vegetable on the side. So that was kind of how I did it. I also, like, as far as like tracking, I did not track for a lot of times because I just had always had issues with food and I'd been tracking my whole life, trying to, counting points on Weight Watcher. Like I had been doing all those things forever. So I was like, let me just see how it can, I had a newborn and I'm on little sleep. So I did count or like track a couple meals that I would eat a lot because I think that a lot of people, I know for us, we eat like the same 10 things and we just kind of rotate them around. I eat a lot of chicken thighs, I eat a lot of ground beef, I eat a lot of steak and pork. And so I kind of measured out like, okay, what is a typical serving of pork? How many, like, what do the macros look like for that? What's the fat like for that? Like, what's a chicken thigh look like compared to a chicken breast? So I did it like one time. And then I would kind of mentally know, like, okay, if I'm going to have steak, because I was still trying to lose weight. So I wasn't going to eat, a huge steak every single day. Then maybe I should, have less of, cheese that day if I'm going to have a big steak. So I kind of figured out calories for a couple things and weighed them out because they're, it's really like I was just watching your video about like the misconception or like mistakes that people make on keto of like the carb creep of like nuts and stuff like that. Like if you eat all the nuts that you want, like those are so, very caloric and very heavy in carbs. So, but so basically I would just eat very simply, and I just kind of kept a formula. I had a list that I did of that I would take to the grocery store of meats, and then of vegetables that were lower carb, and then fats. And this is what it looks like because I printed out. I printed out, and I still keep it like just as a reference to like when I'm bored, like what do I want to eat? And so I'll just look at, okay, like if I want to have chicken thighs, then I mean I could have it with a little bit of bell pepper. Like I literally, it's a fun little experiment for me to kind of check things off.
Like bingo.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So that's how and that's on my blog for free. It's like a handout, but that's how I did it, was just keep it really simple. And then,
So was there a calorie range you were shooting for? Or?
I was breastfeeding at that point, and so I wasn't really, I did the macros where I did the macro calculators and stuff. There's a ton of free keto ones, and so I did that and kind of saw that I think I was aiming like 1,600 calories a day for a while, and I did recalculate them, every couple pounds lost to make sure, like just for calorie wise, like what should I be doing. And I tracked my weight every day. I would weigh myself just because I know when I put the scale away, it's when I just throw the towel in for my health always. So I would weigh myself every day, and if I wasn't losing weight, like about 1 to 2 pounds a week, then I would kind of check in with myself and kind of see like, okay, what do I need to fix? And also I drink a ton of water, and I think that really helped, like over a gallon a day always. And so that helped me feel full. It helps me just feel better with like myself. Like I just feel better with a lot of water.
Helps cravings and stuff.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing that is maybe people don't want to hear, but what I didn't have any desserts. I didn't have any fat bombs. I never made anything like that. I never made anything with almond flour. Literally, the first time I touched almond flour was to make myself a cheesecake on my birthday, and that was mid-September. And I started in May. So I went from May to September without any kind of almond flour, anything like that. So I still would have like pizza casseroles or things like that, but I didn't do a lot of almond flour heavy things, I guess you should say. And I think there are so many great keto recipes. You can make keto fried chicken and all this kind of stuff, which is great for when you're in maintenance. And I think it is great for variety if you're someone who wants that. But because I was so focused and I felt so, when I'm just eating very simply, my body felt better. I had more energy. I didn't have the crashes. And so I would just eat like a pork chop with very little seasoning on it, just I use Montreal steak seasoning like for everything. But so I would just put that on everything. So it kept my cravings away. And I think a lot of that I learned from my time doing Whole30s, that, a lot of your cravings for food and for sweets is psychological too, even if it's not real sugar. So that really helped me. I just was like, I'm gonna kind of do it cold turkey, and it felt great doing it. I didn't feel deprived, because once you get in the wing, a couple days into it, I feel like I was going through the keto flu again, a little bit, because I really because I didn't know any different. But there were times. So after I started in September, that's when I started bringing things in. And interestingly enough, I looked back on my weight loss. I did not lose 1 pound in September. So even though I lost 90 pounds in 9 months, none of that came from the month of September. And that's because I had cheesecake and leftover cheesecake, and it was my whatever, my birthday, and so, which is fine, but the rest of the weight wasn't coming off. So then, because I was frustrated, the weight wasn't coming off. So in October, I started intermittent fasting, and it was also really changing for my health and for my husband's health. I didn't really mention it, but he also eats keto with me. He started just in May just to support me, and he's like, well, I'll see how it goes. And he loves it so much for the mental clarity. He never had to lose weight. He's always been super fit and thin, and but he works out a lot. But he actually lost 35 pounds. Like, I don't even know where it came from, but he did as well. So yeah, he still eats keto with me, and we still intermittent fast. We started that in October, and I really like how I feel that way. And so now I just eat 2 meals a day, my first meal is around noon. And I always eat eggs. I eat breakfast for lunch. So it's really easy for me. I don't have to think about what I'm eating for lunch. It's always like I'll make an egg puff, which is something I just microwave eggs, and then I'll put it between either a chaffle or between like sausage patties, and I just really like that. Or I'll have scrambled eggs with cream cheese in it, or just I'll have just over easy eggs. There's a million ways to make eggs, omelets. So I do a variation of that for lunch with meat, breakfast meat. And then dinner is just a protein that I cook in fat, or that has enough fat on its own. And then sometimes, like usually a side vegetable is what I do for dinner. And I just drink my coffee black. I've always had black coffee, so that wasn't like a shock for me. So that's basically what I do. And then I do drink electrolytes. I did not drink electrolytes when I started keto. That was like one of my biggest things. I was like too cheap to buy them, and I thought that people were just trying to sell things. So I was like, I don't need that. What are they talking about? And I did heavily salt my food, and I did, I did take a magnesium supplement because I'd read about that, and I felt fine, but I do feel better having them. And I watched your video last night, and so I've never done this on my mouth, the Redmond's Real Salt, just putting it in your tongue. And so I did it last night, and because I had a little bit of a headache, and it was really good. It tasted good. So that was a huge thing that I'm going to start doing now. So I'm still learning. There's still things to learn about.
Oh yeah, you never stop learning. So what do you think are some of the tips that people can take for mistakes? Like, what mistakes do you see people making on keto?
Yeah. So one thing, I know a mistake that I made was I would, because I didn't have social media at all. And so when I started keto, and then I just didn't know, like, I didn't know about the electrolytes. That was probably the biggest thing. I had read online, but it's on blogs, and I'm like, well, they're just trying to like sell something, so I really didn't understand the importance of electrolytes. So that was my biggest thing. And I think people don't drink enough water in general, regardless if they're on keto or not. I think people, for me personally, I didn't want to get in the cycle of having a sweet every night. So for my first whole year on keto, the sweets were only for just like Thanksgiving. I made a keto pecan pie, Christmas, my birthday, other people's birthdays. But that's something that I have to kind of reel in a little bit right now. And that's something I'm redoing right now. And I started like a fast through my church. And one of the things that you had to give up was sweets. And so I was like, this is a really good reset for me, because I was getting to the point of like eating keto ice cream like almost every night. And yes, you can have it, but like, I just don't think my body runs as well on it when I'm including like a lot of artificial things in it. So that is, my biggest mistake, I think. And one thing too, I think keto has a really bad rap. Like I went to a health and wellness like group, that was support group at my church, and I had just said like the same thing, like, hey, I'm doing keto, and the director actually pulled me aside and said, hey man, you can't sell anything here. And I was like, I'm not trying to sell anything. Like I'm just excited and passionate about this. And I think that keto has a bad rap of people thinking you have to buy something, like you have to buy ketones, you have to buy all these special products, you have to buy all this collagen, you have to buy all these things. And I think it discourages people from sticking with it. And I think the other thing that really discourages people, and that a mistake that I almost fell into and I almost gave up on keto, was because the keto flu, I felt so sick for a couple of days. And, I'm thinking like, I have this young daughter. I don't want her to think I'm starving myself. Like, I don't want her to think that I'm not making healthy choices. And I really wanted to model healthy eating for her. So that was like when I was going into keto. And then when I felt so sick, I was like, my body's telling me that I'm so sick. I have to stop this. Like, this is not, and versus like if I would have known, and I did research when I felt so sick, because I was ready to just completely give up on keto on like day 4. And then when I read that it's normal, and it's not that like your body's in withdrawal, or it is in withdrawal, but it's not that your body is not loving what it's doing. It's that it's changing how it's fueling it. And, you're no longer running on the sugar and, all the carbs that you had been running on. So as soon as I learned that, this is not like a new thing, and that, people have been eating this way for a long time, and that it's not a fad diet, then it really like set my ease. So I think people think it's like a fad diet. They're going to lose a bunch of weight quickly and then go back to how they were eating. And so I think that's the biggest mistake that I see people making. Because all the time, people that I meet at church or at other things, they'll say like, oh, I can do keto for like 30 days and then back to normal. And like, you won't feel good. Like that's the, how are you feeling now? Like if you feel tired and you feel run down. And, I don't know if it's for everyone, but I know for me, like, my husband and I always talk about like, what are we missing? Nothing. I feel so good. Why would I ever go back to when I felt. And another thing I forgot to mention, was I was on, depression medication in college, was very anxious all the time, having panic attacks, like, and it's all gone away, like completely gone away just on how I changed my eating. And I didn't work out because I was too afraid to work out, and I always feel like a failure in the gym. So the first year of keto, exactly a whole year on my ketoversary, my parents and I joined a gym together. And so 1 year into keto, I started. Now I work out, and I feel even better now because I'm like moving my body, and nothing intense. I'm not like a weight trainer or anything. I just will get a walk in or an elliptical or some weightlifting, or just about 30 minutes a day. I try to get in. And I know you love your walks too. I love to go outside and go on walks. So that's another big thing, is to maybe not jump into everything all at once, but to just view this as a healthy way. And whenever I'm thinking about, my body now, it's thinking about how it's fueling that food, that food is nutrition, and that I'm eating when I'm hungry, but I'm not forcing myself to eat or anything. So, it's just freedom now, it's complete, like, I'm not worrying about my next meal all the time. And I think keeping it simple has helped me with that. I eat breakfast every day for lunch, and then dinner is just a simple protein. And so that's it. Like, I can literally throw a frozen chicken thighs in my air fryer or in my instant pot, and they'll be done in 20 minutes. And it's cheaper. Like, our grocery bill has been cut in half since starting keto, because I'm not buying chips, I'm not buying cookies, I'm not buying anything that, I'm not buying a lot of things that are just junk, basically. And
kombucha.
yeah, all that stuff is so, expensive. And
What about your IBS?
Yeah, so that has completely gone away. I still have to, like, I do still take like a fiber supplement sometimes, or but it's really gone away. Like, there's no more cramping, or I think a lot of that was gluten. But I think it's interesting is my daughter has had digestive issues from birth, and so we've been taking her to specialists at Vanderbilt and X-rays and ultrasound. Like, she's been having a lot of issues. And when I talked to the specialists about her diet, the doctors and stuff, they didn't know how we ate. They didn't know that we eat low carb and stuff. And she said, get her off the grains. That's not easy to digest. Like, the first thing she needs is healthy fats, and then protein. And then she said, and then you can work on vegetables or fruit. But for her and her needs, you need to have protein and healthy fats. And I was like, I got that. Like, that's great. Like,
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So she still doesn't eat, like, not because we're not allowing her to, but doesn't really enjoy bread or anything. Like, we'll offer it to her. And she also has a gluten sensitivity, so she eats gluten-free as well. But it's just been,
she eats similar to you guys.
So she eats exactly what we eat. She always has eaten that way. And I made my own baby food for her, which is super easy, just different ways. And that was one of the things that was so easy, is like, I'm cooking for us, I might as well cook the same thing for her. And so she doesn't eat anything that's at the typical like baby aisle, I guess.
Oh, that's amazing. So what would you tell somebody who's doing some maintenance and tips for what is your maintenance and tips for people who are, have lost weight, now they want to stay at the same.
Yeah, it's amazing. With like next week, I will be at a whole year of within the same 5 pounds. Like, so that's been, of maintenance. And I will just say that it's possible, right? I never thought it would be possible as someone who used to gain like 25, 30 pounds and lose it and gain it. So it's possible to live this way and to maintain. I don't have to track what I eat just because the intermittent fasting really helps me. So I just eat 2 meals a day. And, I think if I was incorporating a lot of things that you buy at a store, then I would maybe have more of an issue. I had like protein bar gate where I started eating a lot of protein bars, and then my weight went up like a ton, and I started feeling tired, and then I was craving more protein bars, and I would like wake up, and because I have issues with food, like I would know exactly where the protein bars were in my house. I would know how many I had left. Like, it was like kind of that obsessing cycle that I don't have when I'm eating cleaner and when I'm eating proteins, both, mostly. And so giving up things like that really has helped me. And I know it's a great option for a lot of people, convenience, but I just know with me and my hangups, it was not a good option. And it's expensive, right? I know they're supposed to be a meal replacement, but I was never ever using them as a meal replacement. It was always like a treat, a snack, a dessert. Like I would eat my huge meals and then also eat those. So, and I just want to eat like how our ancestors have eaten as the hunters and gatherers and things like that. So
they didn't have Costco protein.
Yeah, they didn't. Those are the hardest.
Those are the best. The peanut butter one. Oh my God.
All of them. Yeah. So just, I would say to someone in maintenance that it's possible that, and I do still enjoy keto sweets on occasion. It is nice for me to have a celebratory thing for birthdays, for whatever. And I don't have any other health issues that would, keep me from doing that. I, can obviously everything's gluten-free that I eat. My husband, I tried to like, do you want a low carb wrap? Like, because I also, one other thing, don't get caught up in what everyone else is doing. I had that issue when I joined Instagram, wanted to order everything everyone was buying. I wanted to eat everything everyone was eating. And every body is so different. Like every single person is so different. So some people can handle that, but I couldn't, and I can't eat gluten anyway. So all those wraps and breads, every so often I'll have one if like I make it myself or something like that. But it was not, but don't get caught up in all that.
I really don't think anyone should eat gluten ever. So
yeah,
most people doing these kinds of diets have at least either IBS or an autoimmune disease. So it's like, hello. So tell Gina, tell everyone where they can find you. I know you're a Girl Eat Keto on Instagram, and then she has a great, if you're in Nashville, you can come and to her new keto meetup.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Well, it's almost sold out. I was shocked. Like the room can hold 70 people, and we only have like 10 spots left, but we're having it at the end of March, and so it'll just be a great place for other like-minded people. We can just talk, and I'm gonna have food, and my parents do keto as well, which I could spend a whole nother time talking about that, or them and their health benefits they've seen. But so they're going to be there and cooking for us and doing some cooking demos and things like that. So yeah, it's always fun to meet up with other people who eat your same way, because you don't feel so isolated. You don't feel like you're doing anything weird, and so I have a blog that right now is girleatketo.com. I may change it. I'm kind of like trying to figure out what I want to do with it, but right now it's that. So
awesome. I mean, I think your story is really going to help people, and you guys can follow her at Girl Eat Keto on Instagram. And please, if this video was helpful, like it, share it with a friend, do a thumbs up, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you, Gina. It was awesome. Good job.
Hi, thanks, Caitlin.